So you realized editing is just taking too much time, and you need to hire an editor and just don't know where to start? This is for you. In this video, you'll learn how to find and hire an editor from the Philippines. Now, in my opinion, the Philippines is the best place to hire a remote worker, and stay tuned later in this video when I talk about all of the reasons why. This was me, and when it went from a couple of times a month to a couple of times a week, I knew I had to do something different, or I was going to burn out. Unfortunately, the late nights and long editing sessions were not the only symptom of my problem. My business was constantly on a roller coaster of work and income. I would go from super busy to crickets. What I found was I would market and sell and then get jobs and work on them and push marketing and selling to the back burner. And once the work was complete, my pipeline was dry and it was back to square one. I needed to figure out how to get the work done and still have time to market myself. This sent me down the road of finding an editor. So after lots of research, even interviewing a few local editors, I decided I was going to go with a remote editor, specifically one from the Philippines, and we'll get to why here in a minute. If this sounds anything like what you're experiencing, continue watching to see how a remote editor can help you solve this problem. So what exactly is a remote editor? A remote editor is simply an editor you employ, either project-based or as an employee or contractor, that does not work in the same physical location as you. This could be someone in the same city that works from home or across the globe in a different country. This video is focusing on that second scenario, but many of the same tactics and systems can be used for different scenarios. I use an editor from the Philippines, and she has been with me for 3 years. I use her in a few different ways. Sometimes she'll edit products from start to finish if I feel the scenario is right. But most of the time, I feel she is best used on some simpler editing tasks that tend to take a lot of time, like cutting down interviews, cutting up event footage, and creating rough cuts. Secondly, she edits a lot of repetitive tasks like podcasts and Facebook shows, series of videos that we produce monthly for clients, or scripted videos that are very well defined. This means most of the time, final cleanup and sound and color are all finished by myself. I have found this is a good mix of time savings and complexity, but every situation will be different. So why should you hire a remote editor? Here are 3 primary reasons why. First is to save time. When you offload those tasks to someone else, you eventually regain all of that time you would have spent on those tasks. Second is to save money. Generally, the rate you are paying yourself to edit or an in-house editor will be much more than if you worked with a remote editor. Third is to increase productivity and focus. When you can offload tasks that you don't need to be doing, you can focus on those tasks that grow the business, like sales and marketing. So how do you find one? Now, there are a variety of places you could find editors, from Facebook groups to job boards to Upwork, Fiverr, and other gig sites. When I went through the process of finding an editor a few years ago, I researched all of these. And I discovered John Jonas and his website for finding virtual employees that only focused on workers from the Philippines. Now, this is not sponsored, and I am just an onlinejobs.ph customer and affiliated in no other way. John goes much deeper on all aspects of Philippine remote workers, and I linked his channel in the description below. Now, there are many reasons why Filipino workers are such a great idea, but 4 particular ones stuck out to me in my search. Most Filipino people speak English pretty well. English has been and is being taught in schools, and typically Filipino people use English in some capacity every day. $1 goes a long way. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the average family spends about $4,000 a year. This gives us the opportunity to offer above average pay and still afford an editor. They are very loyal. Now, family is still a huge part of Filipino culture, and loyalty is a high priority. This typically carries over to employment as well. There are already existing systems to hire and pay. Using onlinejobs.ph simplified hiring and managing payments. Before you hire a remote worker, you need to have a few things lined up. You need to know how to do the tasks you want to be done and be able to teach them to your worker. This may seem simple at first, but if you don't have a documented process of how you do your work, you need to start there. Giving your remote editor a frequently asked questions, employee manual, or resources to help them along will go a very long way. You also need to devote some time to work alongside them or perform some deep dive evaluation of their work to answer all questions and set proper expectations for them. You will need to decide if they are full-time, part-time, or per project. Now, full-time will most likely give you the best results if you can provide enough work. Having someone always available and only editing your videos will help get things back to you quickly. By providing full-time work, they will not only not have to look for other opportunities and potentially leave you later for full-time or different work. Pay can range widely from a couple $100 a month to up over $1,000 a month. I suggest doing a little research on the site's job search tool and balancing skills and experience with pay that fits your business. I've not used remote editors on a part-time or project base. Based on the cost of full-time and the upsides of it, it has just been better for me to stick with full-time. You'll need a system or process for your remote workers to follow. The Philippines are 12-ish hours different for most of us in the US. This means a lot of the time I am sleeping while they are working. If there is a system in place, there will not need to be much back and forth to understand what needs to be done. In addition, creating a process of regular follow-ups will keep them accountable, and you will be able to correct any misunderstandings or issues before they become big problems. If you don't realize by now, having a remote editor is not hands-off. While they save a lot of editing time, you must keep in constant communication and review to keep everything going smoothly. Once you have all that figured out, I recommend heading over to onlinejobs.ph and create a detailed job description. Now, you can post a job for free, but the extra features in the upgrade are well worth it when you're trying to hire and communicate with applicants. You are likely to be inundated with many job applications fairly quickly. I actually turned off my job post after about 24 hours. A lot of the applicants are probably not qualified and fairly easy to weed out. I recommend picking your top 5 to 10 prospects and start with email communication. You should draft an email that restates what your job entails. And then I like to ask 3 to 5 semi-general personal and job-related questions. First of all, you're looking for how they communicate and potentially uncover any red flags like slow communication, not following directions, unable to communicate, and so on. I actually had a couple people respond to this initial email with just a link to their profile, and it's easy to check them off and move on. I'll ask questions about the computer that they're editing on, experience, where they will work, their internet speed, what time of day is preferable for them to work. I will also ask basic editing questions and ask for 2 to 3 examples of their work. Most likely after this process, you'll be able to narrow down to 3 to 5 candidates. The next step is setting up a video interview. These will be slightly uncomfortable for both of you, but you will quickly uncover any possible language barriers. I like the idea of keeping this informal. Just a chat to get to know the candidate a little better and decide if they will work well along with you. I personally think from here, you should have everything you need to select a candidate, but further interviews could be possible. For a full-time hire, offer a 30 to 90 day probationary period or temporary arrangement with a solid end date. At the end of that time, if you both feel like the work and relationship are going well, offer a permanent position. If either party feels like this isn't working out, this is an opportunity to exit the arrangement. I've been using the online jobs payment tool that uses Payoneer to pay since day one. Your workers should already be familiar with Payoneer, and it is super simple to pay them. Now, I typically pay the first week after a month of work. For example, I will pay the first week of May for editing completed in April. Now, consult with your tax professional for your specific tax situation. Bench Accounting says, in general, companies do not need to withhold any taxes for foreign contractors. They would be responsible for handling taxes in the physical location they complete the work. According to Bench, the IRS does require for you to keep Form W-8-BEN on file for foreign contractors. And the IRS says there is no need to issue 1099s to foreign contractors that are not U.S. citizens. Overall, for me, it has been simpler managing accounting and taxes for my remote employees. So once you've hired an editor, what is the workflow? Now, I made a whole video on the workflow I use for working with our remote editor. Now, you can check it out here. You have questions about hiring remote editors? Put it in the comments below.